Yes, good morning.
Morning, doctor. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Morning, Dr. Newma. Dr. Samuel, morning. You're muted.
Good morning. How are you today?
Fine, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Sam Thembi. Alice Ked, good morning.
Good morning, doctor.
Doctor, how are you?
Fine, thank you. How is UP?
We are fine.
All right. So where are the others? Are they joining? So let's give them some few minutes. So as mentioned earlier on, today we have a guest lecture. So I will introduce him once the rest are on board. So let's give the others about 5 minutes. I want to believe that there's no load shedding today.
Doctor, I don't think there should be load shedding at the moment, but I know the honors students are writing exam on Monday, so that might be why some of them might not be here at the moment.
Okay. But then they have the whole of the afternoon and tomorrow to revise for the exam. Eh?
Yes, Doctor.
Yes, because they will also sit for this exam later in the month. So they need this lesson as well. Yes, because I can't see the honor students. But I think in the interest of time, we can begin. Today is a Saturday and I know people are busy. So kindly allow me to introduce Dr. Samuel. Good. So yes, so today we will be taken through our topic 11 by Dr. Samuel Onyuma. So Dr. Samuel Onyuma is a colleague. We teach with him at Laikipia University here in Kenya. He is grounded in finance. He teaches finance. He's also an agribusiness person. So this is his area, and he has published widely, including textbooks, and supervised a number of students. And I believe that he is, of course, grounded in this area, and you will benefit a lot from his presentation. So welcome, Dr. Samuel. So we have students, these are SIMAE students, and they are from different countries. We have Kenya, Uganda, and South Africa, and Eswatini, I think so, yes. So about 4 countries represented. And we have the honors students and the master's students, and I think also PhD. So I'm informed that the honors are beginning their exams on Monday, so maybe a few might not join. So normally there are 17 in number. So far there are 9, Yes. So let's hope that the rest will join us as we proceed with the lesson. So welcome, Dr. Samuel. So I think you can take over. So kindly let's welcome Dr. Samuel. Guys.
Welcome, Dr.
Thank you very much, Daktari, for that introduction. I take this pleasure to meet your students from different countries, and I hope we are going to engage and enjoy the lecture. As you've been told, my name is Samuel Onyuma, and I'm a colleague to Dr. Florence. So today, we want to look at the agricultural value chain, and I have a number of issues that I want us to go through. I hope by the end of it all, we would have picked issues which are pertaining to how to finance agricultural value chain. I want to begin by looking at what is it that we are going to cover. We want to look at the concept of agribusiness value chain. Why is agri-value chain financing needed in Africa? What are the principles of effective design of value chain financing? We will also look at how agri-value chain actors can facilitate financing within the chain. And then we look at the types and the forms of agri-value chain financing. We will conclude our lecture by looking at the specific agri-value chain financing products or arrangements which might be exhausted. And then we'll recap our lecture. So, talking about agricultural value chain, our understanding is that we want to look at, how financing can be done within the agricultural supply chain. That is moving from the producers up to the consumer. So talking about agribusiness, I want to believe this one now you are much aware about. Talking about farms who are producing agricultural products. We're talking about processors of agricultural commodities, talking about agricultural service support organizations such as logistics firms, which transport the agricultural commodities, agricultural insurance, agricultural financing institution, warehousing and packaging organizations, input suppliers, machinery suppliers, etc. And then we are talking about the agri-enterprises. So those are the food retailers and wholesalers. So looking at the agribusiness sector per se, we are saying that it can offer opportunities for market-based economic development that creates benefits to the agricultural value chains. So supporting the stability and the growth of these enterprises can foster economic prosperity, job creation in economies where poverty is an issue. So agricultural enterprises growth also address key economic issues that affect production, consumption, livelihoods, as well as supply chain stability. It is estimated that about 70% of the Africa's population live in rural areas and depend on agriculture as their main income source. So economic growth in the agricultural sector has been found to be twice as effective in reducing poverty compared to growth in other sectors. So strengthening agricultural value chains could be among the strategies for approaching the issue of addressing poverty. So that's a typical agricultural value chain. As I've mentioned, we're talking about producers. Those could be individual farmers, farmer organizations, input providers, etc. And we're moving to harvesting and logistics, primary processing and warehousing. We're talking about secondary processing if the product would need further processing. Then we have those service farms which distribute, break bundles and package and handle the agricultural commodities. And then we have the market where we have retailers and wholesalers who are vending the commodities. So for African agri-enterprises to continue driving economic growth, creating dynamic market-oriented growth and spurring innovations and job opportunities, they need access to growth finance, market information, technology, trading spaces, and knowledge and expertise. However, access to finance is the main challenge to the growth and competitiveness of these enterprises. But again, agri-enterprises face limited access to financing from formal financial markets. I'm talking about formal financial institutions like commercial banks, due to some relatively perceived risks. I want to mention that these risks sometimes may not be as severe as would be thought of, but financial institutions do perceive that agriculture generally is fraught with a lot of risks. And an estimated 75% of agribusinesses lack sufficient access to finance and capacity to manage it. Even this capacity of managing the finances, again, it is perceived. Not all agribusinesses have limitation in managing finance. However, that is what financial institutions believe. The risk is in agricultural value chain lending is also at least twice as high as risk in other sectors, which are served by the same lenders. And returns in agribusiness value chain lending are on average about 5% lower than returns in other sectors. Agricultural enterprises operate at the base of many domestic as well as global value chains. A growing number of them produce and process high value crops that have markets in foreign markets or countries. Despite having quality agricultural products with established markets, most of these enterprises lack finance to invest in inputs, to purchase raw materials and build processing facilities, warehouses, and other value-adding infrastructure. Although there are government programs designed to address gaps in rural, urban, underserved financial markets through private sector engagement, these programs have been found to, not to exist at a meaningful stage, and thus the financing needs of agribusinesses are largely unmet. Microfinance also is available in many African countries, but their primary focus is on enterprises that typically employ very few workers and are rarely part of the formal economy. Consequently, microfinance can, but does not fully address the need of agri-enterprises employing more people and require huge amount of credit. Commercial banks, on the other side, are also constrained when considering expansion into rural agri-markets due to high transaction costs to reach these far-flung areas where farmers operate, due to also to lack of traditional collateral, perceived risk of agri-lending, limited managerial capacity, thus making rural agribusinesses to be excluded from the mainstream formal financial markets. However, the emerging rise in private sector impact in investing that provides new credit opportunities to address rural poverty with market-based solutions can provide the agribusiness sector with the funds to finance their value chains through large-scale asset investment needed for production, processing of the products, and specialized logistics. These emerging private sector innovations, such as mobile money lending and transfer systems and other digital funding platforms, have become useful in providing the needed funds for value chain development. In addition, capital markets and commodity features also have an imperative role in bridging this financing gap through the provision of alternative financing sources for agribusiness, as these businesses evolve over their different phases of their life cycle. Now, so why do we need agri-value chain financing in our continent? Priority, in my view, needs to be given to economic growth in the agricultural sector, which has the potential to provide a stable food supply at affordable prices and contributes to the competitiveness of our economy. Agricultural investment is an effective way to reduce poverty, promote agricultural productivity, keep up with the population growth in the continent, and enhance environmentally sustainable ways of farming. Thus, agriculture-led growth can only achieve these when making use of appropriate value chain financing solutions. Smallholder farmers, however, face many challenges in their financing. From a financial viewpoint, agricultural investment in general is perceived as high risk due to price risk, climate risk, credit risk, low productivity, and low mechanization. Now, as commercial banks struggle to finance smallholder farmers, there's a need for commercial financing solutions inclusive of these farmers. Usually, collateral is a key ingredient in agricultural financing, especially by banks. Traditionally, in agricultural lending, agricultural land is a key collected asset. But agricultural land in many African countries is government-owned, and those interested in land obtain it through some long-term leases. Or land is communally owned and can only be utilized for community benefit. Smallholder farmers are thus regarded as not creditworthy by commercial banks, as the risk of non-repayment is perceived to be high, and in the event of default, there is no collateral to auction. These challenges lead to increased risk exposure for financiers of agri-investments, and if credit is granted, very high interest rates and strict credit terms are usually levied to compensate for the perceived high risk. From the smallholder farmer's perspective, it is only rational to obtain affordable financing at realistic credit terms. Therefore, there is a need for new and innovative agricultural financing solutions that are commercially viable, both to the farmers as well as the financiers. Within this context, value chain financing is therefore a solution for increased access to agricultural finance for smallholder farmers in the continent. Leveraging value chain relationship makes it possible to extend access to finance to seemingly riskier agribusinesses on a larger scale than is possible through traditional agricultural financing approaches. In the absence of adequate financing, small agri-producers and other chain actors may be relegated to low cost, low profitability products and production technologies, with implication not only for themselves and their families, but for the growth and profitability of the entire value chain. Agricultural processors may also be unable to secure the inputs needed to compete effectively in the national or global markets. Similarly, limited liquidity higher up the value chain may hamper agri-processors' expansion into new markets and limit their demand for smaller agri-farms products. Therefore, effective value chain financing is grounded in the understanding of these interdependent relationships, which allow donors, practitioners, or rural economic development practitioners to identify where to facilitate financial flows for greater impact throughout the chain, but also for the growth and profitability of the entire agri-value chains. Now, what are the principles for effective value chain financing? And I'm mentioning here that such financing leverages the inherent relationship within agri-value chains to secure external financing of the agribusiness activities in the chain within the following principles. One, they need to be demand-driven. The other one is that there's need for a well-integrated and linked so that the chains are not disintegrated. Also, the value chain financing requires proper risk management, taking into account typical credit risks, market risks, production risks, political risks as well as operational risks. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you are familiar with these terms. Talking about credit risk, we are just talking about the risk of the possible risk of, one granting credit and then there is a default in repayment. Market risk, we're just talking about risk of loss due to adverse price movements in the market. Production risk is the risk that the agricultural yields will be lower than expected. Political risks, I think those are risks of losing money or making losses in cash flows than expected due to political decisions or events occurring. And lastly, operational risk, these are risks of losses due to flawed or failed processes, such as policies, systems, which are disrupted. This may disrupt how business is conducted. So we are talking about, staff errors, fraud, or physical events. There is also need for a strong farmer organization. And where small and medium sized farms are involved, farm inputs and equipment financing is often realized through farmer organizations rather than on individual farmer level. Thus, such farmer organization, whether they are cooperatives or grower schemes, need to comply to standards on cooperative governance, bankability, capitalization, etc. There's also need for enabling environment. And here I'm saying that specific agri-value chain finance structures may be realized in the legislations that allow for proper pledging of inventory as collateral, pledging future crops harvest, or equipment, the farm equipment to financiers as collateral. And lastly, there's a need for multi-party agreements. And I'm saying that value chain finance structures do involve more than two contracting parties, such as a funding institution, farmer cooperatives, the off-takers, which are the borrowers. Thus, receivables of the cooperative on the off-taker are either pledged to a bank as collateral or payment is made through the bank, a bank account, just to make the bank be comfortable that it can settle the advances. And this is just a means of enabling the financier to be able to grant the finance. Now, how can value chain actors facilitate financing? One is through screening. Try to screen the borrowers. And it is the value chain actors who have useful information about the borrowers, which can help financial institutions screen for reliability, evaluate profitability, and assess the risk of default. So basically, these are the parties who have information about the borrower insofar as creditworthiness is concerned. There's the issue of disbursement and repayment of loans. So here, agri-value chain actors may play a direct role in loan transactions through disbursement of loans on behalf of the financial institution. And loan repayments may also be channeled through them. And this helps to lower transaction costs and reduce the likelihood of accumulating arrears and potential default. And the third one, lastly, is agri-value chain actors may also provide a form of soft collateral in the form of direct, formal or informal guarantees, or co-signing or assigning value to inventory, which is kept in the house. They may also provide some alternatives which is acceptable to a financial institution in the case where legal collateral is not available to secure such loans. Such may provide a reasonable guarantee of repayment to the extent that the financial institution would waive traditional collateral requirements. So such arrangements can be important to the lenders or financial institutions since they signal creditworthiness and thus decrease the possibility of default. Now, what are the types of value chain finance which may be available? And I want to say that we can group this into four. The first one is the provision of credit, savings, guarantee or insurance to and among agri-value chain actors. We can also have the creation of different forms of strategic alliances through financing, which is extended by a combination of various chain actors and financial institutions. We can also have the sale of ownership to investors through the private capital markets. And lastly, we have the offering certain tools or services to manage price, production or marketing risk by agribusinesses such as farmers and the processors. Now, we have four forms of value chain financing, which we are going to be discussing. The first one is a direct value chain financing arrangements. And this just refers to financial flows between value chain actors. For example, agri-processors may provide cash or in-kind credit to a small farmer producing a commodity for the processor. The credit would then be paid when the commodity is finally delivered to the processor. And here, good examples that we are going to discuss is a trade credit financing, as well as contract farming. The second one is indirect value chain financing arrangements. This refers to lending by a financial institution to a value chain member or value chain actor. Some successful approaches to value chain financing are actually a hybrid of the two. For example, a financial institution such as a bank, a credit union, or a cooperative, NGO may lend to small producers through a processor. The processor, with its established relationship with producers, may take responsibility for ensuring that a producer repay its loan to the bank, thereby reducing the bank's cost in analyzing each borrower's credit risk and in monitoring individual loans. So there will be no need of screening in this case. And good examples here are warehouse receipts, factoring or reverse factoring, purchase order finance, and lease financing. We are going to discuss them. The third one is digital lending platforms, such as mobile money, as well as other electronic payment systems, are emerging value chain funding arrangements. Examples here are crowdfunding, as well as mobile money. Lastly, capital market funding, where agri-SMEs can raise equity finance through listing of shares, options, and future contracts. And examples here are a firm doing an IPO, initial public offering, where they sell their shares to the public, thereby raising finance, as well as commodity future exchanges. So that's the typical forms. Like I've mentioned, we have direct, within the chain financing, and then we have indirect outside the chain financing. And within the chain financing, we're just saying that we have financing may be moving all the way from the input suppliers to the farmers or producers, up to the processors, warehousing, retail, to the consumers. And here, the issue is, we need the input financing, whether in kind payment or in cash at the bottom. As we move ahead, we need working capital, etc. In the indirect indirect formal financing, here again, as the chain goes upward, there's need of working capital or loans in form of inventories. And then the financial institutions can now come in to offer working capital, okay? Whether it is for producers or processors. There is also the issue of equipment leasing. As we get further, there would be some requirement for guarantee, bank guarantees, maybe through letter of credit or bank assurance as we move ahead. And then as we reach the wholesaler or retailer levels, Here, again, financial institutions must become handy for provision of the working capital. So, that being the case then, let us look at the specific agri-value chain financing arrangements. Under the direct value chain financial arrangement, we just mentioned that there is the issue of trade credit. Trade credit just involves input suppliers or product buyers or processors issuing short-term, normally seasonal loans or credit in the form of in-kind credit to agricultural producers for working capital, as we have explained. Here, financial institutions are rarely involved. So we are just saying that a farmer, for example, may go to buy, let's say, inputs from the supplier. The supplier and the farmer can agree so that the supplier supplies farm inputs to the farmer on credit. And they agree on the credit terms, credit period, for example, whether there will be any penalty for delayed payments or there will be interest. So when provided as a loan, trade credit finance tends to be limited to working capital. For most cases, inputs, and is usually provided in kind. Relationships between the buyer and the seller are often more temporary and price-driven than in the case of, as we shall see, contract farming or outgrower schemes. The advantages here is that there could be improved yields via improved inputs, which have been obtained from the supplier, increased access to high potential markets because you are able to produce in time quality products and be able to supply them within the timelines. However, their limited ability to expand due to reliance on close personal contacts. And there's also the issue of vulnerability to side selling because the supplier might, have potential buyers. But again, within those buyers who are willing to buy on credit, there are some which he or she may prefer. So there is that limitation there. Number two is contract farming. Here, we are saying that these are just relationships in which buyers of agricultural product, whether it is a processor, a wholesaler, or exporter, provide credit either in cash or in kind in the form of inputs and technical assistance to agri-producers to ensure there is high quality crops in large quantities for the buyer to purchase. So we have an institution or an individual, okay, who is in need of, let's say, French beans. And he goes and contracts French bean farmers, provides them with technical assistance, provides them with the required inputs, allow them to enter into a contract, allow them to produce, and then the producers will then, the farmers will then sell to him the produce. And then they can agree on how they recover, recovers the cost of inputs and the technical assistance. There is usually a formal agreement, like I've said, between the buyer and the seller, guaranteeing the purchase of the crop at a pre-negotiated price. It is often direct financing, but may be complemented by the involvement of a financial institution that recognizes the value of that close-knit relationship between the buyer and the producers. This increases the level of involvement is more often seen among buyers and sellers of high-value specialty products such as horticultural products or products meant for export market. Advantages include increased productivity and higher product prices through improved inputs use and technical assistance, as well as increased access to high potential formal markets. You see, if we have a rural small scale farmer, accessing global markets is a big challenge, okay? So by having somebody who will buy the produce and move with it to those global markets is better. Okay. However, there could be biases against individual small producers due to requirements for technology, equipment, information, as well as potential for exploitative or monopoly relationship. Because you are dealing with a large institution, you are a small scale producer, so you may not have that required voice. So the buyer might exploit the farmer. The second group of this financing is indirect value chain financing arrangements. And under this, we have warehouse receipt financing, which is just a system of collateralized lending mechanism in which commodities are stored in a bonded warehouse that issues a legally binding receipt that can be used as a collateral to secure credit. And that is the issue here, that the bonded warehouse issues a legally binding receipt that you have kept your commodity there, that then you can be used as collateral to secure credit. Okay, the receipts certifies the quantity and quality of stored commodity and allow producers to delay selling a crop until when prices are more favorable. Okay, the receipts can be pledged as collateral to the lender, who advances a percentage of the crop's value to the producer and places a charge or a lien on the commodity to ensure that the loan will be repaid once the producer sells the crop. So the issue is that I can enter into an agreement as a farmer with a warehouse operator. When I harvest, I can keep my commodity in the warehouse. They will issue me with some receipt detailing the nature of the crop commodity I've stored there. And now this receipt, I can use it as a collateral to look for a credit. So you see how this is a form of financing. So I can use this to obtain credit to do other production activities until such a time when the prices in the market are favorable to me. Advantages include the use of stored produce as collateral, increased access to formal finance for expansion, higher product prices due to extended sales season, and increased access to high potential markets. The disadvantage here is that this arrangement requires lengthy process of developing regulatory framework. There's high cost of warehousing, warehouses that favors the large producers. The second one is factoring, debt factoring or reverse factoring. Under factoring, a firm account receivables, I'm referring to debts, are sold to lenders or factoring houses at a discount in exchange for immediate cash needed for working capital or to service other debts. Under reverse factoring, the lender only purchases account receivables from certain very creditworthy buyers, as opposed to purchasing an entire portfolio of the account receivables from an individual seller. While traditional financing is often unavailable for these value chain actors, factoring is a form of supplier financing that allows a supplier to sell its creditworthy accounts receivables at a discount. This discount covers interest and the service fees associated with the managing and collecting the debts. Lenders require sellers to assign their full portfolio of account receivables, or at least a minimum number, in order to diversify the risk of the buyer defaulting on the credit. The third one is purchase order financing. This is a short-term pre-delivery financing in which sellers pledge purchase orders for goods as partial collateral to secure working capital, or trade finance to fill an order, an LPO. The financing is transaction specific and cannot be used for general cash flow purposes, but only costs associated with filling the specific order, like purchasing raw materials, paying labor, etc. The lender provides the seller with funds for specific order, or can purchase the required inputs directly from the supplier. So what is happening here, ladies and gentlemen, is that I have agricultural commodity. I have already someone who is willing to buy from me. So they've issued me with an order to sell to them. Okay? I can use this order and go and pledge it for credit. Okay? Because once I get the funding to undertake other farm activities, the financier is comfortable knowing that if I have challenges repaying the order, there is the seller who is, the buyer who is who has issued this LPO would be able to make the repayment. So the farmer would make the repayments when finally the order is filled and the customer pays. It utilizes the purchase order. As I've mentioned, the lender can assess the loan's risk on the basis of the individual transactions or business ability to complete such order, and the buyer's ability to pay once it is completed. So again, this is one area where which has really emerged, and farmers or agribusiness enterprises can really take advantage of it. And number 4, lastly, under this is leasing. Here, there is an asset that we require to use. We may not have the funds to buy it. So we might approach the asset owner and agree with them to lease to us the asset, so that we can utilize that asset, whether it is a machinery, a warehouse, etc., etc. So we have 2 types of leases. Finance leases typically extends for all of the useful life of the asset. They require regular lease payments throughout the lease term, which allow the lessor to recover the cost of the asset and accumulated interest payment. They usually cannot be cancelled, and typically provide the opportunity for the lessee to purchase the then depreciated asset at the end of the lease period. So finance leases, I'm in need of a machinery. I lease a machinery from someone. I'll be making lease payments, which is a function of 2 components. One is a part of the loan, the cost of that asset, and the other component is the interest, that is the finance charge. So at the end of the lease period, I get to own that asset. That is finance lease. Operational lease are typically shorter in duration and can be cancelled by the lessee, because the leases do not typically extend beyond the useful life of the asset. The lessor is able to recover the initial investment through short-term rental payments, and through the final sale of the slightly used asset once the lease period is ended. So leasing is a viable way which agribusinesses can explore to acquire productive assets when they lack sufficient collateral. So the issue here is that since the asset ownership is not transferred to the client, the lessor who is leasing, the owner of the asset, can look beyond an enterprise collateral to cover potential default and instead consider whether the asset will generate enough cash flows to cover for the payment of the cost of the asset, as well as the interest accumulated during the period of the lease. So this is one area which value chain actors can explore for purposes of funding. The third group is what we are calling digital value chain financing platforms. And here we have mobile money and other electronic payment systems. And as you are aware, mobile money payments has emerged in our continent, and farmers are using this system not only to transfer money within the chain, but also to obtain credit as extended by the mobile money operators. The issue of lack of collateral or collated assets and that perceived risk that we had mentioned, that keeps formal financial institutions from dealing financially with small-scale agribusinesses. This form of financing can bypass those challenges. For example, agribusinesses can use M-Pesa and other mobile money operate system to borrow as well as transfer cash to other, chain actors, or using certain platforms, digital platforms, such as Alipay, WeChat Pay, etc. The providers are developing the capacity of agribusinesses in integrating with the managing digital payment solutions, introducing farmers and other agribusinesses to mobile wallets, and facilitating an ecosystem of agents for cash in and cash out. Growth in mobile money usage in our continent make the lending and delivery of financial services to agribusinesses much cheaper and less riskier, as less physical infrastructure is required to reach these farmers. So this is one area where advances in innovations is really coming handy to help in financing value chain actors within the agricultural sector. And currently in countries where mobile telephony systems have developed and mobile money services are thriving, value chain financing using mobile telephony and other digital payment platforms has really emerged and is a way of a modern way of financing the value chains. Number two is crowdfunding. Now, digital financial approaches are rapidly growing, as you are aware, and crowdfunding models is really emerging. In economies with less developed financial systems, crowdfunding is a viable means of financing value chains, agricultural value chains. The rise of social media, along with the convenient web-based payment systems, have made it possible to conduct crowdfunding cheaply. As some of you may be aware, crowdfunding is just an open call that is made to the public for purposes of raising funds for a specific project. So a farmer may want to start maybe a strategic business unit, or start a new value chain, or a new sub-enterprise within the farm. It might prepare that and prepare a proposal, and it can do a call in the internet for people to contribute small amount of monies to finance that project. And based on the viability of that project, the public might fundraise for that project. So there's no promise that the original investment of a contributor will be returned at any particular date in the future. Under crowdfunding, agripreneurs who wish to finance a project would require donations to help fund such a project. And those who will be donating do frequently receive rewards related to the project based on the amount donated. Thus, crowdfunding projects generally rely on mutually beneficial exchanges to ensure success. Most agri-enterprises in Africa are usually self-funded, and therefore crowdfunding platforms such as Thrive Agric, CrowdVest, what is sometimes called Farm Crowdy, Babadoo, Mchanga, have solved a critical problem faced by many startups, such as lack of business angel networks, etc. This type of financing is also applicable in value chain finance. For example, iFarm Connect is an agri-tech crowdfunding platform that provides an opportunity to directly connect investors to sponsors or help finance farmers for increased production and incomes. Farm Fundra, a farmer-owned, is an equity crowdfunding platform. Them is a little bit different. The one from US, a little bit different. They offer a platform through which an agri-enterprise might organize itself and raise equity financing. And I want to believe that this is one example where our African agribusinesses can really tap into. Because remember, these monies will not really be refunded back. You are just asking for people who believe in your concept, business concept, to donate funding for you to undertake that project or that plan. So this is one area where very emerging small agribusiness outfits can really use to raise finance. And the last group is capital market financing. We're talking about private sector financing. And here, we should appreciate that in the continent, a number of countries have thriving, more robust, deep, very active security exchanges, or if you want, stock exchanges. And here we have a number of stock exchanges within the continents who have created market segments aimed or for allowing SMEs to raise finance. Remember, the stock market is paneled in a number of market segments. We have the main market investment segments. Those ones are for listing companies which are large, mature, who are raising huge amount of capital, companies which are more profit, whose shares are having high liquidity, trading frequently within the stock exchange. And then we have the alternative market segments. Those are like medium-sized firms. And then a few stock exchanges have created a market segment for listing SMEs, small businesses, okay? And these platforms, what I'm calling here growth enterprise market segments, they enable SMEs to be able to list their shares on the stock market without having to satisfy the rigorous listing requirements which are placed on them by the market regulators. So being a permanent capital source, initial public offering, meaning selling shares to the public through the GEMS segment of security exchanges, can enable such young SMEs to raise substantial initial amount of capital to finance their growth and development by selling their equity shares to investors. And this is one area which is really promising for many agribusinesses. So IPOs can generate agribusinesses awareness, make their products or services be known to new group of potential investors, can enable the entrepreneurs to share risks with new shareholders while benefiting from the possible increase in the farm valuation as the trading continues. The shares of these shares, the prices of these shares, will be growing. And due to capital regulations, these IPOs can reduce risk associated with agribusinesses, which we have seen, thus increasing the creditworthiness of the listed agri-SMEs, making them more attractive even to other, in future, formal lending institutions. So what we are saying is that this source of or form of financing will not only allow agribusinesses to generate funds for financing activities within the value chain, but it can also in future improve their image, remove those perceived risk of default, and become more attractive to even banks for future lending. And lastly, under this is commodity future exchanges. So here, a commodity futures contract is just a contractual agreement between two parties to buy or sell a specified quantity and the quality of agricultural commodity at a certain time, in future at a certain price, agreed at the time of entering into such contracts in a commodity futures exchange. Okay? The exchange is meant to provide a centralized, regulated place for commodity futures to be traded. And such exchanges offer fully automated trading, settlement, and risk management systems comparable with the international standards. And the exchanges deal in trading of commodities such as agricultural crops. The objective for a futures exchange are effective price discovery, efficient price risk management, and once agreed or signed on, such contracts can be traded on the secondary market. And this is the issue. Once we have signed the futures contract, okay, such contracts can then be traded on the secondary market by either partly, thus enabling the involved value chain actor to raise the needed finance, the availability of hedging the market, and then finances can help agri-producers to buy materials at their own convenience according to their own cash liquidity. And the price discovery mechanism results in efficient prices to keep the agri-producers' costs in check to better compete within the global market. The contracts can be bought or sold prior to the delivery date, thus helping agri-producers to offload a commodity prior to the delivery date. So what we are saying here is that a farmer and let's say a miller, a corn farmer, can enter into a contract with a corn miller before even production begin. So you are promising the miller that you'll supply them with, let's say, 1 million bags of corn. And the miller is also promising to buy corn from you come harvest time at a particular price. Call it price X. So come that time, even when the price has increased to X plus 1, and in the market, the price is maybe of corn is X minus 10, the miller is obligated to exercise the option to buy. If during harvest time, the price for corn is higher than what the two parties agreed at. The farmer is obligated to sell. Now, once they have entered into such agreement, even before planting or before harvesting, that agreement can then be traded on the secondary market of commodity futures exchange. And the farmer can receive some money out of it, sell it to somebody, to another farmer, and allow that farmer to be the one that will be supplying the maize at the agreed price, and make some money out of it. So the capital market financing, that one of security exchanges where we are doing IPO, as well as through futures exchanges where we are trading the futures contract, are very viable means of financing agribusinesses. Ladies and gentlemen, what have we been discussing? We have seen that agri-value chains have become very important in determining a nation's trade competitiveness in a globalized market. We have noted that in Africa, where agriculture is the backbone, in many economies, agri-value chains are important in enhancing export competitiveness, developing sustainable agricultural system, alleviating poverty, and promoting financial inclusions on the rural agripreneurs. We have also noted that formal finance providers like commercial banks, microfinance institutions, rural agricultural banks, government programs have limited finance for agri-SMEs. And if they do fund, they focus on specific specialized farm machineries, farm development, and the farmer may raise some percentage of the costs plus the collected assets. We've learned also that there are various forms of value chain financing. The first group or category is direct, where financial flows between value chain actors, such as trade finance or trade credit, contract farming. The other grouping is the indirect financing. Here, there is the lending by financial institution to value chain actors, and we mentioned here warehouse receipting, factoring and reverse factoring, purchase order, and leasing of assets. In addition, we learned that there are emerging private sector impact innovations, such as mobile money, digital funding platforms, crowdfunding platforms, as well as the capital market financing. Here we discussed the sale of shares and the commodity features, contracts, and all these have become useful in agri-value chain financing. And how can value chain actors facilitate such financing? We said that this can be achieved through screening of borrowers, disbursement and repayment of loans, as well as the provision of soft collateral. Remember, we said that collateral requirement is a big stumbling block in the way of obtaining credit by agribusiness. And lastly, for the effectiveness of value chain finance, it must be envisaged. It must envisage the principles of daily, demand-driven, well interlinked, all-encompassing risk management, a strong farmer organization, enabling environment with enforceable multi-party agreements. This brings us to our lecture, and I invite questions, if there are, for clarity or to expound on some other issues. But again, I've provided you with some reading materials that you can use to soil your hands, so that you even widen the scope of your understanding. And on the last section of the capital markets funding. I've provided one of my books there, that is Securities Market Development in Africa, and it is discussing issues of mobile financial services, efficient remittance flows, and diaspora investment securities, and how these can be used for funding. Thank you very much. I now invite some questions.
Thank you very much, Doc, for walking the students through that topic. Kindly let us appreciate Dr. Samuel for the great presentation. Good. So, any questions? I think.
Yes, Doctor.
Yes, Geoffrey.
I have 3 concerns. Doctor, thank you for that good presentation. And my first concern is on understanding the warehouse receipt system, because you talked about that farmers are given inputs on credit, and until they maybe go and farm and bring back the yield according to maybe the agreed percentage. But what happens to scenarios whereby maybe with these extreme weather events, and maybe the farmer's yield is affected and is not in position to bring back the agreed amount of quantity that they agreed on, and maybe it would even lead to aspects like default in maybe in paying back such. Then another one was on crowdfunding. Now, crowdfunding, because it's like more or less like fundraising, but is it based on brand loyalty, that maybe there is a particular platform that you have your customers that you can easily maybe access, maybe you can raise funds from them? And then still on crowdfunding, what could be those forms of the rewards that people who take interest and pay or raise funds to the farm because of maybe the viability of the idea? So what could be those forms of rewards that the guys who have paid benefit? Thank you.
Maybe let me take this as they come. One, you are asking about warehousing receipts. What happens to when there are weather risks and there's the possibility of default? Normally, what happens here, and this is the thing, I have an agricultural output. During harvest, prices usually are lower because of excess supply. So what we do is that I enter into an arrangement with a warehouse provider so that I can store my commodity there. Maybe up to until everybody else have harvested, the prices of the commodity has started improving in the market, okay? That is when now I will be selling. But now in the meantime, during this time of storage, I need financing to do my other farm activities, preparation of land, etc., etc. So the warehouse provider provides me with an evidence that I am storing my commodity with him. It is this evidence, the receipt that they have issued, that I would use to go and approach now a credit or a lender, a credit institution, etc. I will be saying, look, the warehouse operator says that I've stored their commodity worth 1 million, and now I'm in need of financing. Can I obtain maybe $500,000 or shillings? And based on that evidence, I'm provided with credit. That is how warehouse financing occurs. So whether there is other risks brought about by weather, remember we have harvested, or sometimes the arrangement, if we are more familiar now with the warehouse provider, during the planting and the time the crops are growing, they can give me a small amount of credit. Just as 10-15% of what I'm expecting to harvest. Now, when weather becomes an issue, I think these are issues that the farmer and the warehouse provider can agree on, so that it can even be recovered next crop harvest when it comes. Number two is crowdfunding. By the way, crowdfunding is just donation. I have this concept. I believe it can work. This is how it is even happening. I can even pitch it. And I ask for people to do for me small donations. Donations here can just be even in $1, a dime, $5, that kind of thing. I think what those who are donating will be having self-realization that what I funded is now thriving. Two, depending on the project to be funded, the receiver of the donation, we've seen cases where they are even giving some certificates, some form of certificates to those who donated and are asking for such certificates that you are one of those donors who funded the project when we were starting. There have also been cases where, if you live along the agricultural sector, there have been cases where the project, let's say I wanted to start some small brewer that will employ the people within my community, and I sell that to the public, and then they finance it, and then the brewer starts thriving. We've seen cases where some donors who are demanding for some rewards are even sent the alcohol bottles of a pack of bottles of alcohol. So it is not a must that they must be given something, but the thing is that they will have this satisfaction that one of the projects that they did fund is now thriving and serving the community. Thank you.
Any other question?
Any other question?
Any concern? So have you understood the concepts that have been discussed? Or are you familiar with the concepts? Could be you've come across those concepts, eh? Okay, but I want to believe that you have learned quite a lot. And please refer to those reference materials so for further information and indulgence. So thank you very much, Dr. Samuel, once again. And thank you, guys, for showing up on Saturday. I know you have a number of activities to do on a Saturday, eh? But you've taken your time to be here. So thank you very much. Alice, do you have...
Doctor, am I just a request? Could we kindly have the slides uploaded?
I've already uploaded on ClickUp, eh?
Okay, thank you.
Yes, they are available on ClickUp. Great.
Doctor,
So I think, yes, Geoffrey.
I needed some clarification.
Mm.
There is a cooperative that does seed production, but what they do is to their members who are not able to purchase the improved seed. Now, these guys, when they're dealing with maybe with the research center, now the research center gives them a foundation seed that they may apply. But now what the cooperative does to its members and the other non-members who are having interest in the seed, what I've seen these guys, they get into some sort of memorandum of understanding that now if you want seed, there is a particular quantity, because the quantities range from 2 kilograms. Now you're given 2 kilograms of seed to go and plant, but on condition you bring back about 10 kilograms on planting. So I don't know, can that also be a form of financing? Because this one is not directly monetary, but I don't know that that can be a form of financing.
Yes, I think so, because look at the genesis, the background. I want to, as a farmer, I want to plant this particular crop. I'm not able of, raising money to buy the seeds. Some farmer organization decides to supply me with the seed. Only that when I will be bringing or repaying, I will be repaying back X+1. So the over and above of what I was given, I think is like the interest that they are charging. Yes, this can be viewed as also a form of financing those micro farmers who are involved in this. Remember, there's also another NGO in Africa called One Acre Fund. When they started, they were also giving seeds and inputs, and you again pay back. Only that for them, you pay back using the money. But when they started, they were even accepting you paying back using the harvest, the commodity. So yes, this is a form of financing.
I think that is well addressed.
Yes, Doctor.
So financing doesn't mean that it's just monetary, yeah?
Yes.
Will be inputs and other resources, eh?
Yes, Doctor.
Nice. Any other question? Hanko, today you are quiet.
Doctor, this is a bit of content overload, so I just need to spend a bit more time because some of these concepts are not necessarily some of the concepts we use in South Africa. Access to finance is quite a big struggle here, but it's a lot. So it's quite it was quite informative, but it's very new concept. So I just need to spend a bit more time, but it was very informative.
Okay. So it's quite heavy, eh, for you. So you need some time to digest, eh?
Yes.
Yes, but of course he will share with you his contacts, email address. So in case of any clarification question, you can just drop him an email address, eh? Maybe Doc,
Thank
you
you
can
so much,
just
Doctor.
drop it on the chat box, eh? I hope that is okay, Hanko.
That's perfectly fine, Doctor.
Sam, are you still digesting? Nancy, Njoki,
Yes, doctor.
you are equally digesting, eh?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So you can find his email address is posted on the chat box. So in case of any query or clarification, please just drop him an email, eh?
Yeah, I've shared my email.
So I think that marks the end of today's lesson. So bye, guys. And in case of any communication, we shall communicate on our WhatsApp platform. Eh?
Yes,
Doctor, sorry, just to quickly ask another question. So we will be still having class next week for value chains.
No. Remember, the honor students are beginning their classes on their exams next week.
Yes. All right. So this was
Yes.
technically then our last class. But if we need, for example, a catch-up class somewhere or just a revision session, then we'll just
You
chat
can
in the group.
we can always organize, eh?
All right. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Yes, I will post some materials on the last topic, the support. And I think, as mentioned last week, that we have mentioned a number of, support systems within the value chain. So I'll just post some materials for you guys on ClickUp.
All right. Thank you, Doctor.
Great. So thanks a lot. Do have a great weekend.
Good weekend to you, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Samuel.
It was my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Okay.